Welcome to everything you need to know about how to recover from ROCD. In this video, I'm going to cover 10 different points. We're going to talk everything about chasing feelings, what exposures need to get done, how to actually wear the discomfort of the unknown, and everything in between. ROCD is a topic that unfortunately is widely misunderstood because it comes down to not needing to feel love, not needing to be in a relationship, realizing that your worst case scenario being single forever, realizing your worst case scenario of not being in the right relationship, since there is no such thing as the quote unquote right relationship or the one, is not as bad as we think. Before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button. I've never done a video at night. I had to turn the light on for this one. I think this will be a really good video. I want to say that the reason that ROCD didn't have the capabilities so far to latch with me as strong as some of my other fears is because I've looked into my beliefs a lot when it comes to relationships. I would ask myself, what would happen if Erica left me tomorrow? What would happen if Erica passed away tomorrow? What would happen if she cheated on me? And I think about these from time to time in the most rational way I can. And looking at them in the rational perspectives has been very beneficial for my overall progress when it comes to creating a strong, rational basis surrounding relationships. The same thing for my mother, my father who passed away, my friends and family members. Again, if you're interested in our coaching services, please email info@ocdrecovery.com. We will get back to you in a timely fashion with all the information you're looking for when it comes to our coaching and webinar services. So I have the list right here of the things I want to talk about. And again, this is called why ROCD is not going. You're completely trying to run from the discomfort. Now, when someone is going through any type of OCD recovery, there is a large amount of physical discomfort, mental discomfort that needs to be worn in many different ways. Different types of physical sensations, different types of intrusive thoughts, images, urges, everything in between. The urge to leave the relationship, the urge to confess to your partner, and all of the other small, subtle avoidance and reassurance behaviors will need to be worn as the core fear comes down, which is the fear of being in the wrong relationship, the fear of not feeling in love, the fear of not being with the one, and everything in between. I've done about 4 or 5 other lengthy videos surrounding ROCD. So if you go to our playlist on the YouTube channel, you go and you click on those, that will give you a good background on those particular fears. And I think those will be really, really good. You're going to have to wear all of the confusion that comes along. I talk about confusion a lot. Confusion is something that's not covered a whole lot. And what confusion means is, am I in the right relationship? It's more of an urge than it is a thought or it is a sensation, but it comes with more than a sensation. It comes with an urgency of the illusion of needing to know. So sitting with that is so critical for your overall ROCD progress. Number 2, you think you can prove why you're in love, looking for certainty and chasing feelings. So this goes back to point 1 and also mixed in with point 2. ROCD sufferers are obsessed with looking for certainty whether they're in the right relationship. They go down the route of trying to prove it through social media posts, talking to friends and family members, subtly bringing it up with friends. If you have a girl who has ROCD, maybe she gets around a bunch of her girlfriends and they start talking about ROCD, about relationships. But the only problem with that is that they don't understand how OCD works, which is not their fault, and they'll end up reassuring you because that's what people do. They reassure each other. When you go to a medical doctor, when you go to the hospital, the goal is to reassure the person to make them feel safe. But for us, in an OCD sense, that is one of the worst things you could have. So it's very, very, very important to realize that the more reassurance you're seeking, the more certainty you're looking for, whether you're in the right relationship or not, is actually going to do the complete opposite. It's going to push you in the opposite direction. It's not going to give you the certainty you're looking for. It's an illusion of certainty. Many of the things that we believe we have dire certainty on, we don't have. Driving the car down the highway, you think there's certainty. Whether you're afraid of planes or not, you think there's certainty when you're in the plane. You think if your business is going well for 30 years, a lot of people think that the business could never crash. We know that's not true. The illusion of certainty comes down to perception. Everything is uncertain. The only thing is certain is death. And the only other thing that is certain is that your perception is justifying your reality in your own terms. This is the only two things that people know that they think are certain. And that is so important to cover. The third thing is you're avoiding relationships, marriage, children. I have many people that come in, not just ROCD, the fear of being overwhelmed, and they say to me, I'm so afraid of being in the wrong relationship. I am so afraid of getting married. So what they do is they postpone marriage, they postpone moving in together, and all the other things that come with relationships or furthering your relationship in the marriage. And this can take the shape in many different things, moving in together, opening a business together, anything you can imagine, because you're looking for a certain feeling in your mind. You're looking for the right time, but there is no such thing as the right time. All humans can do is be, and not in an OCD sense, analytical, is be analytical, look at previous things, make a judgment call, and move forward, and then deal with the consequences. That's how life works, and that's really difficult for people to do because we're so hyper fixated on making the right decision and many times the right decision comes from trial and error. And handling the discomfort. So if you're avoiding marriages, weddings are the big one, moving in together, anything that seems like you're going to further your relationship will feel like a life or death scenario. So going with those and accepting it might be the quote unquote wrong decision is the best way forward in that. Number 4, you're not working on your beliefs in the core fear. So I always talk about how there's this waterfall fashion of fears and how an OCD cycle works. So the top of the waterfall is the fear of being alone, the fear of being rejected, the fear of being in the wrong relationship, the fear of never feeling in love. That teeters down, into intrusive thoughts, images, sensation, urges, which then teeters down into a realness of how it feels, okay? The realness of how it feels is what makes people perform compulsions, avoidance behaviors, reassurance seeking, because the suffering can seem so all-consuming, and anxiety is called the great mimicker. It can mimic everything from dizziness to headaches to all sorts of physical symptoms to intrusive XYZ, and because of that, it feels so real, which is stemming from the intrusiveness of the thought, image, sensation, urges, which is stemming from the core fear. Then you perform the compulsion, the avoidance behavior that reinstills the belief system, low frustration tolerance, and that goes forward. So understanding practically, everything I just said was practical understanding about how OCD works. But the most important thing to remember, and this is a little bit off topic, but it is key because we are talking about a practical application. You do not need to know anything about the brain. You do not need to know anything about hormones, serotonin, dopamine, prefrontal cortex, neuroplasticity. You don't have to understand any of that. It sounds really cool and it's cool to study, but you can never even know the word neuroplasticity and still recover by understanding how the cycle actually works in practicality. Practical experience almost always trumps academia book knowledge. That's in all factors of life. I know many people who have great academic knowledge and are garbage at pursuing goals because they just know the science, but they don't know how to actually put it into action. Putting it into action is the best thing. I call humans information gatherers because that's what we're good at. We gather information, we don't put it into practice, and that really is a hindrance on our recovery process and in life. Number 5, you're still seeking reassurance through social media platforms and other types of gurus. Now, I just got done reading a book where someone was creating it was a sales book, and there was an example of someone who's creating a 90 days to be in love thing. Great, sure, awesome for sales, garbage for life. There's no such thing as falling in love in these short time frames, how people imagine. These shows like Married at First Sight and all these other things instill these short-term gratification belief systems surrounding relationships. Relationships are like a business. They're hard work, there's ups and downs, there's disagreements, you're not always going to get along, and you have to work together at problem solving to move forward. Almost nothing I see on social media regarding relationships, this is so far outside the realm of ROCD, I never see good relationship advice from my perspective. It's always garbage. And I know that sounds harsh, but it is strictly the truth. A 17-year-old, many people hear me say this, a 17-year-old influencer in LA who's never been married giving marriage advice is like someone who's living under a bridge, who's been bankrupt 3 times and is homeless, and is giving you information about scaling a $100 million business. It doesn't make sense. You have to look, when you're listening to someone, you want to ask yourself, has this person done what I want to do? Most of the time, the answer is no. I always say this. If you took the average financial advisor and you said, show me your portfolio before I invest money with you, you wouldn't invest money with them. I want you to think about what I'm saying here. Practicality trumps all. This is something I have to speak very sternly about, because many people with ROCD will go down the wrong route and look for things where people do not have experience with ROCD. If they do, it's very wishy-washy and surface level, not touching chronic OCD. You feel like you are about to fall into a pit of sharks from the urges of confession, from the realness of it. There's no way you're going to be able to just prove that to yourself by self-reassuring yourself to freedom. So the belief system is the critical piece in trying to reassure yourself through social media posts. And, 6 ways to know you're in love. Anything that starts with anything in life in general, anything in life that starts with 5 ways to do this is usually garbage. Unless it's something like this, the 5 realities of life: discipline, consistency, pain, discomfort. Like, those are all not sexy. That's what makes them real. But when you look at relationships, it's like 6 ways to know you're in love. Do they tell you they love you every day? Do they bring you roses? And all this nonsense. It's just nonsense. The reason why ROCD is one of the biggest fears, top 3 biggest fears with OCD, not that it's hard to recover from, is because of the irrational beliefs as a society surrounding relationships. That is so important to cover. So important to cover. Okay. Number 6. You're not taking recovery seriously. This goes back to everything we just said. You're still performing small compulsions, understandable, but not good for you. You're still performing small avoidance behaviors, understandable, but not good for you. You're still not doing what's necessary. You haven't read the books on the reading list. You haven't educated yourself on the belief systems. You haven't moved with patience, which is so hard. Patience was so hard for me. It took me years and years and years to feel even semi-confident in patience for me, someone with ADHD. And again, we're not talking about fears of ADHD and just all these natural instincts that I have as being more of like this type A person in certain times. Patience was not easy for me. So I had to buckle down and take recovery a little bit more seriously than I was. And only you can answer that question. This goes, number 7 was patience. So I'll put those together. Number 8, this one is very important. You think cheating is 100% awful. So cheating is just an action of another human being wanting to flirt or have sex with someone else. It's not the end of the world. It feels like the end of the world because it feels like a personal betrayal, but it's not as simple as that. Now, this is a purely logical, rational thinking behavior about cheating. So when someone has sex with someone, they're just having sex with someone. When they have sex with someone that they're just having sex with, when they're in a marriage, the only thing that's different is some paper and some words. It's very hard to conceptualize. Now, that doesn't mean that I agree with the act of cheating. I think I understand why people cheat. Maybe there's things going on at home. Maybe they don't understand tools about wearing frustration. Maybe they have a belief system based around they feel like they can't leave. So cheating is a behavior that I don't think is a good behavior. I think it leads to more lying and more sneaking and all sorts of other things, because I was someone who cheated in many of my previous relationships. But there's no guilt in that. And now the secondary problem of that is people will say something like, oh, well, you're a narcissist, or oh, you have no heart, or there's no empathy. It's not true. It's just a behavior. A lot of humans are highly sexual creatures. And if you actually look at the belief system based, again, this is just pure logic. If you look at where monogamy comes from, it comes from religion. And religion is not the most rational thing. This is very hard to hear. What makes religion irrational to an Ellis perspective and us is the black and whiteness of it. You can believe in God and I cannot believe in God, but if you say, I know God is real, you don't. Just how I would say, I know God isn't real, I don't. This is why I don't believe in God, and if I die and I joke about and I float up and there's a heaven, he goes, you're wrong, I have to deal with that. So all of these things, cheating is not inherently good or bad. It's just a behavior that tends to have more problems than not. Do I think there are people out there that cheat efficiently, I guess is the way I would say it? Sure. Would I agree with that? No. But I can see it from a rational perspective. Again, this topic is so important to break down from a good versus bad perspective, which is the third book on the reading list, The Myth of Self-Esteem. This is a very touchy subject for people because they hold high emotional regard based around cheating. Again, I think cheating is not a good action because it leads to a bunch of other problems, deception, having to lie, and just a flat out annoyance of having to tiptoe around. It's much better to not cheat from a behavioral standpoint and the things you have to deal with. But do I think that the person is inherently good or bad because they cheat? No, I do not. And that's important to cover. Number 9, you're trying to compare the past. So the past is dead. Now, the problem with the past in anything, ROCD, previous relationships, I didn't notice this about my partner, so on and so forth, is the past is 100% gone. So spending any amount of significant time in the past has a 0 ROI. This goes all the way down to any ROCD fear or any event that you deem traumatic. Now, there are events out there that are very problematic on belief systems and are really, really tough. I mean, losing a parent, genocide, famine, wars, homicide, anything you can imagine. Those are really tough events. But once that event is over, the only thing you could do is acknowledge the event and then move forward as best as you can. But trying to get certainty on that event from a past in the perspective of ROCD is, maybe I shouldn't have left them. Should I have left them? I didn't know this about them. That's a dead end. You are where you are right now. You have made decisions in your life. You cannot go back and change any of them. All you can do is accept yourself and the decisions you made, completely separate your identity from those decisions, which takes time, okay? That's why there's no such thing as good and bad people. They're just people who perform good and bad actions. And the reason why we get so sucked up in the past is because it's very easy to convince someone that an answer is in the past because they're like, if I just solve this, it's over. That is sexier and sells better than telling someone your belief systems in the now are really what's causing all these problems. That is not an easy belief to work on because it takes much more consistency, ups and down, than confusion. That's really important to cover. And number 10, the last thing I want to talk about was relationship jumping. The reason why I left this one for 10, I remember I was on point 9 and I said, I've covered a lot. What is there to cover? I said relationship jumping. OCD, the urge to leave a relationship will feel so real. You will leave the relationship. And I'm going to give you a correlated example with my body dysmorphia. The urge will be, I can hear my wife because here comes her. She has an electric car. So, no, that's not my wife. That's my neighbor. They have an electric car too. I was wrong. There you go. So they'll come in and they'll say, I want to leave the relationship. Or they go, I left my relationship and I felt great. Now, how do I correlate that with my body dysmorphia? I would just say, I'm just not going to go to the gym. I would not go to the gym and all my symptoms would go away in 2 seconds. Because I would be like, I have nothing to worry about now because I'm not working out, so I don't care about all the conditional self-acceptance based around building muscle, which I held really strongly. And that is an illusion of recovery. It will just latch in another way. The door has not been closed. You have opened the door and went through it to this perceived area of no emotional suffering, but the door is wide open for fear, and fear relationships to latch. So you have to ask yourself, let's say you're in the quote unquote wrong relationship. Again, I don't believe there's no such thing as a right and wrong relationship in the way that humans perceive it. You have to ask yourself, what's the worst that happens? What's the worst that happens? You look at arranged marriages. Look at people in the past. There wasn't the decisions. Marriages were higher. People always say, marriages are down today, percentages. Well, how many people in the past were in a marriage they didn't want to be in? And they stayed because it was a societal norm. Today's societal norms are different. You have to ask yourself all these questions. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, we have lots of great webinars coming up. Webinars are on Tuesdays, 8:30 p.m. UK time. I'm there every single one. I run the majority of them with Rob. We have 2 ROCD webinars coming up. They are great. We are going to go into extreme detail, breaking down fears, how to move behaviorally against an exposure pattern, how to do all these different things to give yourself the best opportunity to actually recover from ROCD. And we have another great ones coming up too. So again, that's info@ocdrecovery.com.